Good afternoon from New Zealand, and welcome to this presentation on sustainable process heat. It's presented by myself, Nicol. I am an engineer with Windsor Energy. If anyone was wondering, it's also very cold in New Zealand at the moment. It snowed across the country yesterday. So the Windsor Group are a New Zealand-based privately owned company that provides a range of services, energy services that include steam boilers, particulate control, kilns, air heaters, cooling towers, heat exchangers, and other industrial equipment. We also have presence in Melbourne. So instead of an agenda, I'm going to focus on some key themes which are present throughout the slides. And those are that the energy and carbon markets are changing and have changed to favour sustainable process heat. So this is from a New Zealand example, but I presume there are similar drivers in Australia. Engage early with key stakeholders. These are multiple year projects, and you want to secure the power lines and the biomass supplies early on. De-risk your project by scheduling time and resources to complete the front end engineering well. You don't want to be spending time and money engineering a solution that isn't right. And then finally, sustainable process heat is well demonstrated. We have biomass supply chains, we have electrical grids, and they are both expanding. So from a New Zealand context, we have a gas supply, which is in the North Island of the country. There's North Island and South Island. They're not connected via a gas grid, so there's only gas in the north, and the gas is declining fairly rapidly, as you can see from this grid. There is no connection to the international markets through LNG. There's a big topic at the moment on whether an LNG import terminal should be built. And as a result of declining indigenous gas, natural gas prices are rising substantially. There is an emission trading scheme here, also known as a carbon price. This peaked about $88 a tonne in November 2022, and it's reduced recently to about $50 a tonne, but it does remain. Just for context, New Zealand's grid is largely renewable, and it's 85 to 88% renewable, which is mostly made of hydropower. There's a lot of wind potential. There's lots of wind getting built. There's loads of solar getting built at the moment. There's some biomass, and there's obviously geothermal too. There's a coal power station for largely used in winter, and there's a few gas power stations. So on to biomass boiler system. Along with the high proportion of renewables in the grid already, there is a lot of solar and wind getting built at the moment, and that's because the costs, as it's happening globally, the cost of installed renewables is decreasing, and it continues to decrease. So on to biomass boiler systems. They can be split into two islands. So you've got a fuel handling island, and then you've got a boiler island. The fuel handling island is how it gets delivered. So you get a truck, and there's a reception area, and then there's fuel storage, and then there's a feed which goes to the boiler. And the boiler island, you'll have a boiler which could be a new dedicated biomass boiler, or it could be converted from a coal boiler. And then there's usually particulate control on the back end of that. The fuel handling island can be about between a quarter and 3/4 of the total project cost. Depends on the infrastructure on site at the time. So it's a large part of the project. And the boiler, conversely, it can be 75% to 25% of the project. So Windsor Energy have delivered 12 biomass boiler projects over the last 8 years. Here's a list, which I won't go through in detail. And then stepping back a bit, the biomass types can be broadly split into three types. There's wood chips, hog fuel, white wood pellets. That's what's on the market here at the moment. These can be classified under ISO 17225. And it's crucial that the biomass type is defined early on in the project and that biomass supply agreement is secure. You do not want to be changing the biomass fuel significantly when you've committed to buying equipment. This it could increase costs. And then moving on to the biomass boiler island. So boiler island consists of a fuel bin, a combustion bed, a furnace walls, boiler bank, steam drum, mud drum, economizer, recuperator, and particulate control. Then there's usually an induced draft fan followed by a flue stack. And so Windsor designed and installed the Babcock and Wilcox tower pack boiler, which is under license from B&W. They range from 10 to 50 megawatts. The tower pack boiler has the ability to pair with different moving grate types, or even a bubbling fluidized bed, which is that image on the right there. The reason they're different grate types is to provide different types of biomass. I won't go into details on which type favor which grates, but we can do that work. And additionally, installed tower packs which have an existing grate can be converted to fire biomass. And we're working on a project in the South Island at the moment, which is doing that, converting from coal to wood pellets. This is Fonterra's Waitoa site in the North Island. This is where we installed a 30 megawatt thermal bubbling fluidized bed tower pack boiler, which was commissioned in 2024. There is a 31-page, very detailed case study on the New Zealand government website, which the link's here, which we could talk about for hours. But one fact is that it burns one tree every 15 minutes. And then particulate control, as I mentioned before. So different flavors of that, which is multi-cyclones, electrostatic precipitators, and baghouses. That's to reduce the fly ash emissions so that it can meet resource consent. This is very well understood technology. And then on to electric boilers. There's two types, which they differ in their scale, the voltage, and the water treatment requirements. So you've got electric resistive element boilers, and then you've got electrode boilers. Compared to fossil-fired boilers, all of the electric boilers have a small footprint. They've got a high efficiency, they've got low maintenance, high availability, faster ramp rates, and a very high turn down to say 4% of maximum continuous rating. Windsor have worked on 7 electric boiler projects over the last 3 years, as listed here. We supply an electric resistive element boiler, which can use 400 or 690 volts, and generally suitable up to 8 megawatt thermal. They require water treatment, which is similar to a fossil-fired boiler, which is chemical dosing. Electrode boilers use high voltage, so 11 to 22 kilovolts, and they require a full water demineralization plant to achieve very low conductivity water, which is how they work because the water is the resistive path itself. They range from 6 to 50 megawatts, and they can operate up to 45 bar. Windsor offer the Zander and Ingstrom electrode boilers from Sweden. They have 40 years of experience, and they have over 200 boilers installed. Windsor were the EPC contractor for an electrode boiler at Matara Valley Milk, who are a dairy processor in the South Island. This one is a 20 megawatt high pressure electrode boiler that produces 28 tons per hour of steam and was officially opened in 2024. It has a 99.9% thermal efficiency and has a 25 to 1 turn down ratio. The drivers for this project were that the site needed to lower the carbon footprint of its milk production. An electrode boiler displaces emissions from a coal boiler, and the New Zealand grid has a very low carbon intensity, as I showed earlier on, with the high proportion of renewables. There's competitive power prices in the South Island because of lots of large-scale hydro projects, and the capital cost for this project was co-funded by the New Zealand government. There's also drivers of improving long-term energy security and reducing exposure to future carbon costs. The success factors were that this was the first fully electrified dairy plant in New Zealand. It proved that a large-scale, high-pressure electrode boiler would work. It provided significant emission reduction of 22,000 tonnes a year reduction, and there was successful delivery, integration, and commissioning with minimal operational disruption. Windsor was the EPC contractor for Fonterra's first electrode boiler, which is at Fonterra Edendale. So this is a 20 megawatt high pressure electrode boiler that produces 30.5 tonnes per hour of steam, was officially opened last year. It also has a 99% thermal efficiency and a 25:1 turn down ratio. Drivers for this project were that the existing boiler asset condition creates significant production risk, which exposes 2 million litres per day of milk processing. So they needed to deliver this project in under 12 months. Additionally, the site needed to reduce reliance on a low quality lignite fuel. And also they needed to reduce the carbon footprint of their production. Again, this is in the South Island and has competitive power pricing, and the capex was co-funded by the New Zealand government. And success factors were that it managed constrained site electrical infrastructure. It's got high reliability, efficiency, and operational simplicity. It's had positive feedback from the site, reduced emissions by 47,000 tonnes, and has demonstrated confidence for future electrode boilers at that site. It also won the New Zealand 2025 Energy Excellence Awards for Large Energy User Initiative of the Year. So a couple more slides. Windsor currently commissioning two 34 megawatt high pressure electrode boilers at Fonterra Whareroa. And we're also working on the design for another two 34 megawatt high pressure electrode boilers at another dairy site. So I've gone through that pretty quickly. I think we're going to move on to the next slide and I'll answer questions later, but feel free to type them in